treating it with chemicals and everything else, then taking electricity and manpower to pump it to your home, and then you promptly flush that water down the toilet. That makes no sense. Or you use that water to water your garden or to wash your car. We have to incentivize rainwater harvesting so that we can use rainwater for the non-potable uses and use Wasco water, the domestic water, for cooking and the other areas. Improve energy efficiency in water use. I'm sure Zilta will tell you that one of our biggest expenses is energy. In my time, Lucelec used to threaten to disconnect Wasco every month until we dealt with that problem, but that's something that has to be addressed. Capacity building and public education for climate resilience, extremely important. Promote and encourage regional learning and replication. Support training and capacity building, which we said earlier. Engage in a comprehensive public awareness campaign. People still do not understand that water sector, and that's why the water sector comes under a lot of criticism for things that are not being done. So we really must have, and I think WASCO together with the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Responsibility for Water Sustainable Development must embark on a significant public awareness campaign. There are 9 planetary boundaries that were established to see just how healthy our planet is. In 6 of these planetary boundaries, we are now getting into the danger zone. And freshwater change, both green water and blue water, we are getting into that area. There is a reduction in the availability of fresh water on this planet. So really, we have to do something about that. Ladies and gentlemen, happy World Water Day. Thank you. And thank you, Laverne, for a great computer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fletcher. Certainly setting an excellent foundation for our conversation this morning. The context of vulnerability, the context of things that we have to balance in terms of policy decisions, even in terms of behavior change. So certainly setting that excellent platform for our panel and for our discussion this morning. So thanks again. Let's give Dr. Fletcher another round of applause. So to build on this and to get into some of the specific perspectives, we have 4 panelists this morning. I would like to call them to the round table or the rectangular table. We have Mrs. Zilta George Leslie. I will tell you a little more in a while. We have Mr. Ignatius Jean. We have Ms. Laverne Walker and Mr. Carl Hunter. So let's welcome them this morning. And as they come in, Mrs. George Leslie, well, as Dr. Fletcher has already introduced her, is the General Manager of WASCO. Mr. Ignatius Jean is the Executive Director of the Caribbean Water and Sewage of CAWASA. Okay. Ms. Laverne Walker is the Program Management Officer from UNEP, dealing with marine pollution, Cartagena Convention Secretariat, and Mr. Carl Hunter represents the St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Association. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can have your seats. And so, as I indicated, we really want to explore 4 perspectives. We have, a really well-selected panel. We have the utility. We have a regional coordinating body. We have an international agency from the UN, and we have private sector. So makes for some good round of boxing, right? But let's see if we can bring those perspectives together this morning. Our first panelist who will share with us a perspective on challenges as a utility provider, including non-revenue water. I will not do the full, in the interest of time, the full bio, but I found a quote from Mrs. George Leslie, very interesting. It says, "I have been part of the WASCO family for 20 years. I am intimately aware of the great commitment of the team to deliver vital water to the national community. We risk life and limb at times to create connections and give access to a safe supply of water to every community. As a team, we are ready to take on the challenges and improve services at every level. And Mrs. George Leslie is breaking the ceiling as the very first female general manager of WASCO. And they tell me when you really want to get a hard job done, you know, you get a competent and a resilient woman to do it. So without any further ado, I present the General Manager of WASCO, Mrs. Zilta George Leslie. Okay. All right. So we seem to have a bit of a tweak in the order, where we will save Wasco for a little later as you are on your edge of your seats, and we will listen to the other lady on the panel, and she is Miss Laverne Walker. Laverne is St. Lucian, now based at UNEP. She was previously with ECLAC. She was with the Ministry of Fisheries in St. Lucia, professional in the marine space, etc., and sustainable development, and a consummate professional. So Laverne, the floor is yours as you speak to us on pollution and integrated water resource management.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Protocol established, but I acknowledge the ministers and parliamentary representatives and ambassadors and permanent secretaries in the room. So, as indicated by Chamberlain, I work with the Cartagena Convention Secretariat. So for those of us who may not necessarily be familiar with the Secretariat, we are managed through the Cartagena Convention. It is the only regional convention in the region that has the mandate to promote cooperation and protection and development of the wider Caribbean region. And we seek to achieve the sustainable development of marine and coastal resources in the Caribbean region through effective integrated management that allows for economic growth and sustainable livelihoods. The Cartagena Convention has 3 protocols associated with it: an oil spills protocol, specially protected areas and wildlife protocol, and a land-based sources of marine pollution protocol. This is a map of the countries that have actually acceded to or ratified the Cartagena Convention. You would see it in light green or green, darker green. Out of all the countries in the wider Caribbean region, only Suriname and Haiti have not yet ratified the convention. And what the countries in dark green have actually ratified the land-based sources of marine pollution, and you would see that St. Lucia is one of the countries in dark green. So we have ratified both the Cartagena Convention and the land-based sources of marine pollution protocol in this instance, but also the specially protected areas and wildlife as well as the oil spill. So St. Lucia has ratified the convention and all 3 protocols. So just for some context and to understand why I'm here today, the LBS protocol, which is what I am working, one of my responsibilities involves supporting the implementation of the LBS protocol for our contracting parties, as well as the oil spills protocol. But the LBS protocol is seeking to reduce pollution by setting emission and effluence limitations through best management practices and exchange information on land-based sources of pollution through cooperation and monitoring and investigation. States that have ratified the protocol need to classify recreational water bodies based on pollution risk to human health and the environment, establish legally binding standards for effluent and discharge, develop national programs of actions for integrated and coastal area management, identify and assess sources of activities contributing to pollution, as well as develop management plans and demonstration projects to reduce marine pollution. So this is just a short introduction and to set the stage as to why we feel that it is relevant and to give the information as to why we actually are part of this panel. So we know that water is, so back to what is we're here to discuss today. We know that water is life and it is critical for sustainable development. It is necessary to the socio-economic development of the countries. It is necessary for food production, sanitation, industry, energy production, healthy ecosystems, and for human survival. However, we know that water scarcity through decreased quantity and quality has an impact on or unequal access can result in increased tensions between communities. And we do know that the theme for this year is water for peace and prosperity. And it was felt that if people do not have sufficient water or access to water that is of good quality, it can increase conflict. So this is something that needs to be considered moving forward. Water is extremely important for economic development. Water and economic development, water pollution and economic development are intrinsically linked, as most forms of production, economic development in this case, generate waste as a byproduct. Water generated from economic activities upstream may impact what's happening downstream. And yes, I'm in St. Lucia actually for the close-up of meetings for a Jeff project, and yesterday we were in the Fossajac area, part of the Edmond Forest Reserve, and we were seeing how agricultural practices happening in that area could impact or impacting on water quality entering the Soufrière watershed and having impacts on the middle and lower watersheds of this area.
One, two.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So we acknowledge that most forms of economic development, there will be pollution associated with it. So there really needs to be an understanding of what we are willing, what the cost of pollution will have on socioeconomic development. So at one, the cost and the cost-benefit analysis, we need to understand how far we are willing to go. So where the cost of associated with pollution will have on ecosystem and human health. And in some cases, it is not necessarily, in my opinion, worth the benefit to go advance with economic development if there are insufficient standards and regulations in place. So how have we in the Cartagena Convention Secretariat supported St. Lucia? So there was a UNEP Jeff project, Global Environment Facility, and implemented by the United Nations Environment Program, as well as what was SEHI, but is now CAFA. It was between 2006 and 2011, and St. Lucia actually had a national project in the Fort-Door watershed. And this project actually focused on behavioral change to support improved water quality and water quantity. So Jimmy spoke about rainwater harvesting in his presentation, and this initiative actually works with people in that entire watershed, because a study found that this area was the area in St. Lucia at that time that had the least amount of regular coverage of water from WASCO. So there actually was a need for them to have alternative forms of water supply, and the project supported many people in that community to establish rainwater harvesting to utilize in their homes. We also did nature-based solutions. There was this is a newish topic that people are now advancing, but this was innovative because this was done in 2009, I think. A nature-based constructed wetlands occurred under this project because the geography of that area made it very difficult to develop soakaways. So constructed wetlands were established. However, Jimmy also mentioned the need to ensure that there's public awareness and sensitization because some people may not necessarily feel comfortable having a constructed wetland very close to their house area. But we did conduct tests, and it was found that after the waste went through the wetland, that it was very clean and possibly you could utilize it to drink, which no one did, but the wetland worked in effect. There was also an integrated pig waste management system where they tried to utilize the waste from pig farms for bio waste, actually. Biogas, thank you. So that was something that was done, and compensating persons or institutions for actions or activities that contribute to improved environment and transferring the environmental service or benefit between stakeholders. So this project sought to incentivize individuals to actually undertake good practices to support better environmental management of whether it's their farms or their businesses. We are also, as I said, did another project, the Integrated Land and Ecosystems Management Project for the Caribbean. It's called the IW Eco Project, and this time we're working in the Soufriere watershed. This was addressing land degradation issues in the upper watershed, and as part of this project, over 1,200 fruit trees were planted as part of slope stabilization initiative, as well as to provide economic alternatives to farmers instead of dashing farming, which is known to be detrimental to soil and to the soil in the area because it causes a lot of soil loss. There was Adopt a River initiative as well with an NGO called Waterways, where they utilize citizen science to undertake water quality monitoring. And there was an establishment of a co-managed area within the with the Force-Jacques Development Foundation, where they're actually seeking to do a community tourism initiative and invite tourists into the Edmond Forest, where they could spend a few nights and set up tents or do glamping as well. So we went yesterday to see the area that they're developing for this. And this is, again, to provide sustainable livelihoods for the people in the area so that they can adopt alternative practices which are not detrimental and which would cause increased water pollution in that watershed. So some of the regional activities that were undertaken as part of the close-up meeting that we were here for, OECS, which is one of the partners of the project, actually launched a regional environment monitoring data portal, REMDAP. What was also stated, even though Jimmy acknowledged this, was there was a integrated water resource management framework developed for the CARICOM region, and it has been tabled both at COTED and at the OECS's Ministerial Ministers of Environment meeting. A laboratory assessment was undertaken for the countries to assess the needs of these countries to improve their monitoring capacities for environmental quality parameters. So some of the recommendations that I have considered they are actually similar to what Jimmy stated, so that's good that there are more than one person stating the same thing. Consider formally adopting the draft policies and institutional frameworks to develop to support improved water resource management, expand national water quality monitoring programs, and ensure that appropriate technologies and financial resources are in place to ensure their sustainability. Monitoring and enforcement is also important of these policies and institutional frameworks. Recognize the interconnectivity of the triple planetary crisis of pollution, climate crisis, and the biodiversity loss, and it's linked to increased environmental risk and economic loss. They are all connected, and we need to acknowledge that. And fully adopt integrated approaches to environmental management, such as IWRM and integrated water and coastal area management. So with that, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, sorry, hold on.
Thank you so much, Laverne, for really demonstrating to us some very practical initiatives that have been piloted and demonstrated and successful in St. Lucia as we consider water not just from the moment we get it for use, but for some of the upstream and critical conservation practices that are needed to guarantee water for generations. Again, thank you so much, Laverne, for this presentation. So are we ready? We may be ready. All right, great. So we revert to the general manager of WASCO, who would be giving us some thoughts, some insights on challenges as a utility provider, including the issue of non-revenue water. And we can see some excellent synergies with Dr. Fletcher's presentation, really setting up the context, and we can see how our panelists are diving deeper into some of these issues. Do we still have some technical challenges? It seems like we have some technical challenges, so we may have to transition to, we can get it, all right? And for those of you who are following us live or with us in the audience, we may have some time for some feedback, some questions from you, so you can begin to take a note of these. But I am almost sure that our panelists may be addressing some of your questions. All right, so while we sort this out, and in interest of time, I may need to advance one of our male panelists, all right? So, Mr. Jean, can I call upon you? So, Mr. Ignatius Jean is the Executive Director of the Caribbean Water and Sewage Association, CAWASA. He is St. Lucian and based right here in St. Lucia. He is also a member of the International Steering Committee of the Global Water Operations Partnership Alliance of UN Habitat, and he has over 3 decades of service in regional and international organizations, technical cooperation, and government. So without any further ado, Mr. Jean.
Yeah, lots of hats, so we had to make it brief. Good morning, everyone, and let me congratulate all of us here who are the converted on World Water Day. I had a quote from someone who presented at our CAWASA Water Operators Conference in 2019, and who said that she was quoting John L. Ford in the National Geographic, who said, "Man works on earth at many things. Some till the soil, a few are kings, but the noblest job beneath the sun is making running water run." And I salute the men and women who make water run to our homes and our businesses, and truly we can appreciate that water is life. So today is their day. So I've been asked to present on the water and sanitation progress through partnerships and cooperation. Of course, the Caribbean Water and Sewage Association is an association of 12 water utilities, all the water utilities in the Eastern Caribbean region, including Barbados, and the Turks and Caicos and the Cayman Islands. And we also have very good relations with our sister organization, which is the body for professionals in the water sector. That is the Caribbean Water and Wastewater Association based in Trinidad. We are also affiliated to the Global Water Operators Partnerships Alliance, which was established by former Secretary General Kofi Annan. So that at that time it was about trying to achieve the MDGs. Now it's SDG 6. And it is supposed to help support water utilities, peer-to-peer partnerships, but I will get into that. And then we have lots of partners in the region. As CAWASA, what we do essentially, our premier mandate is that of training the people, the men and women, from a management level right down to the people in the trenches in operating proper utilities and becoming efficient. So that is essentially what we do. We offer a certification program that is offered by the U.S. Agency called the Water Professionals International. They were called the Association of Boards of Certification, ABC, so that all the operators within the various water utilities who have membership within CAWASA and even some of the non-member utilities, their staff take those exams, and they're taken at various levels, levels 1 to 4, level 4 in the various disciplines, whether it is water distribution, water treatment, et cetera, wastewater and wastewater collection. They take these exams. And of course, this is a perk because all the utilities have already paid for that for them. In the United States and in North America, to work, they take water seriously. And for you to work in the water sector, you have to be certified and to be licensed. Similar to if you're working in the electrical sector, you cannot just get anybody to come and run lines in a house and Lucelec will connect them. You have to be certified and licensed. And we are not theirs yet, but in some utilities, that is compulsory, that if you do not take these exams and you do not get certified, there will not be scope for you for upward mobility within the utilities. Anyway, but about cooperation among utilities, essentially that's what we do. This is why we have an association. Water utility managers and professionals in the water sector do have issues, as we well know. And what we do is to help to forge these partnerships, strengthen relationships among the utilities. We do host a conference where we bring the water operators together, where they can share their experiences. There's the cross-fertilization of ideas. And today, when these men and women meet, they are able to, sometimes in the field, they come up with some technical issue. They are able to pick up the phone, call a colleague somewhere else and say, look, I'm dealing with this issue, because they get to know each other. So that's one level. The other level is for our water utility managers. And then beyond that, we have, through the Global Water Operators Partnerships Alliance, we undertake those twinning programs. About, I think, more than 5 years ago, when Mr. Fletcher, Dr. Fletcher, was Minister for Water, and with the cooperation of the GIZ, we were able to have a partnership with Hamburg Wasser in Germany. Hamburg Wasser has a non-revenue water rate of about 3%. So here it is, they were a mentor to us in the Caribbean, and they came and partnered with WASCO. They actually went and solved lots of problems in the city of Castries by teaching the WASCO operators to do leak detection, to do their energy efficiency management, worked with their pumps and the entire system. They even got the WASCO staff to prepare a strategic plan for water loss reduction. All of these things are there. And that is the type of cooperation. We had a similar cooperation with Belize Water Services and Contra Costa Water District in the United States. And it certainly helped Belize, because it is not that we are saying consultancies do not matter. They matter. But when utilities are working with their peers, they understand each other. And so in Belize, they were able to work and reduce their non-revenue water by about 10% over a 5-year period through this partnership. And notwithstanding where these, the Contra Costa water people came down, they too learned things from the Belize Water Services. And it helps to build the confidence of your workers, to boost their morale, because they know something and they can teach it to other people and other people can learn. So this is what the Global Water Operator Partnership does. In the Caribbean region, we are aligned with the WOPLAC, which is the Water Operators Partnerships of Latin America and the Caribbean. But as we all know, I'm at risk saying that, LAC, the C is usually silent. So we in the English-speaking Caribbean decided, no, this thing is not going to work well for us. We still maintain the partnership, but we have our own subgrouping called CARIWOP, the Caribbean Water Operators Partnerships. And towards this end, we have been looking at doing some of these partnerships within and among our own utilities in the region. One of our big challenges for that is to be able to access the funding, because you have to fly people around, and we know how difficult that could be. But we have used, and fortunately now we have the virtual systems, virtual platforms, we have used those. Another area that we have done very good work, and that is again some of what Dr. Fletcher presented, when we worked towards reporting to the World Water Forum in 2018, World Water Forum in Brazil, I think that was World Water Forum 8. And we came together as regional partners to prepare a working document that was called the RSAP, the Regional Strategic Action Plan for Governance and Building Resilience in Water Utilities in the Caribbean region. That work has never stopped. We continued. We have an implementation and monitoring committee. We meet every month. It includes the CDB, the IDB, most of the water utilities, partners such as CAWASA and CWWA who lead that grouping. And one of the big accomplishments, and it is the first anywhere in the world, that we have formed, or we have just launched, a soft launching at CWWA Guyana, the Caribbean Water Utilities Insurance Component, composite, which is a segregated portfolio of the CRIF, that is the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Fund. And what this insurance is going to do for the utilities, and we know that we live in one of the most vulnerable regions in the world. So what we have done is to pool our resources together with the support of development partners, such as the CDB, the IDB, the UK Development Fund, International Development Department, who have injected some capital to operationalize the QUIC. So it will have one component that will be a response component, which CAWASA will be managing, so that similar to what we have adopted in a large part the CARILEC model, where if one of the CARILEC utilities is affected by some adverse weather event, they can fly out a team with tools, everything, to go give support to the affected utility. Likewise, we're going to have this first component will be funded through this insurance program. The second component is really to ensure the infrastructure. And it is going to be, not you're going to have loss adjusters coming in to assess the losses. It's going to be what you call a parametric insurance. So dependent on the category of the event, as happens now with public buildings, etc., you will be paid within a 14-day period. And the intention is to be able to give liquidity to the utilities to continue their operations after a catastrophic event. The other thing we have been doing and how we work as water utilities, because water utilities really, most of them in the region, as Dr. Fletcher pointed out, cannot even cover the operational expenditure with the tariffs that they collect from the consumers. Because, of course, we understand the politics of water and water as a right and making it affordable. But there's a cost. Producing water is expensive business. Transmission lines that are there for over 100 years. Everybody says, Wasco, why you have all those leaks and all the water is running everywhere? Yes. If you're going to spend money to correct that, you have to put a lot of money. I know one, one utility in a sister country that had a loan of about $250 million to just replace pipes in the capital. And that is not the end of the story. So it is serious business. It is expensive business. So do not beat on Wasco and our other Caribbean utilities. These people work night and day, sleepless nights, literally working magic to make those systems run. So it is one of these things why in St. Lucia, for example, Jamaica, I think in Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, have utility regulatory authorities so that the government does not get involved in deciding whether the utility gets money or not. The utility must present its case, as is done in Belize. And I'll tell you a story about Belize. They once went for a rate increase, and they were turned down by the regulator because they felt that they were being punished for working efficiently. Do you know that Belize Water Services were able to contribute $1 million to the government of Belize during COVID-19 pandemic from their reserves because they are getting it right? And so we have to work in that direction, and this is where we can learn from each other. So I just pointed a few of these, and then I must tell you of Caribsan. This is a project, a collaboration between the water offices of Martinique and Guadeloupe, the French, the Agence Française de Développement is funding it, and the EU Interreg. And this program is a project, pilot project, where we're going to put in a nature-based solutions for wastewater treatment. So we have, in the first phase, was to train a lot of the operators in the utilities in this wastewater management system. We also had included people from the planning departments in government, the environmental health, the people in agriculture who are going to produce the heliconias, which are used in these systems, and so that we have better quality effluents that will go out into the natural waterways. And that is going to be running between St. Lucia, Wasco, the Wasco in Dominica, and INRH in Cuba. And the mentor utility is the mentor partner is the Water Office of Martinique, where they actually have those systems in certain residential areas, and they work, they're low cost, they do not cost the kind of money it takes to build those massive wastewater treatment systems. I think I will have to end now, and I will be available for questions. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jha, and who also is a former cabinet member, former Minister of Agriculture, so certainly bringing both technical and policy considerations to the discussion this morning. Looks like we may have resolved some of our technology issues.
Yeah, we can go anyway.
All right, great. So, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. In true Wasco style, we have a little glitch, but guess what? We're resilient, so we're going to take another measure, and let's see if we can make it work that way. Sorry, we will not be able to present you with the presentation and some of the lovely photos that I have here, which I wanted to show especially to Dr. Fletcher, because I saw he had some photos that were not really, St. Lucian, and I had some lovely ones, but I'll share with him in another way. Let me wish everyone a happy World Water Day. Let me, of course, recognize in our midst Madam President Alvina Reynolds, of course, our Minister Wayne Gerard. We also have Mr. Dominic Fede, and of course, Dr. Fletcher. I want to take this opportunity to thank you so much for all of your work, and of course, Mr. Ignatius Jean, who is a very strong proponent of WASCO. So good morning. We are here. I'm Zilta George Leslie, the CEO of WASCO, and I am here to present to you of some of our challenges as a utility. Of course, as many of you may already know, the utilities, most of them in the region, especially the water utilities, are some of the unsung heroes of modern society. The water company, WASCO, and of course, as Mr. just spoke about, all our sister utilities in the region, we play a pivotal role in ensuring clean and safe water is supplied to households, while we have to also manage our wastewater effectively. However, of course, we face a barrage of challenges which threaten our efficiency, our profitability, and of course, by extension, sustainability of our vital service. Water is one of our most precious resources, and its efficient management is crucial for the well-being of our communities. What is WASCO's responsibility? So we are here to supply potable water, which is safe, wholesome, which is clean, and of course, to return treated waste into the environment, which should be protecting our environment against especially in the Castries region. But WASCO, of course, will continue with all efforts to ensure, with the help, of course, Honorable Wayne Gerard, who is working with us on a Blue Bond project, we will ensure that the environment is safe. We are connecting all households to adequate water and sanitation services to the extent, of course, that it is economically justifiable. What are some of our challenges as a utility provider? As Dr. Fletcher spoke earlier, we also have quite a few of our infrastructure which is aged. Aged infrastructure poses many challenges throughout the region, and of course St. Lucia is no exception. We have many cities and regions which have distribution systems that are decades, if not centuries old. Some of our pipes, like we recently spoke about, our raw water pipeline, which is the pipeline from Millet all the way through to our treatment facility at Ciceron, is over 50 years old. It's 48 to 50 years old. And that infrastructure, of course, deteriorates rapidly. It could lead, of course, to water leaks, reduced water quality, and service disruptions, which I think all of us in St. Lucia are familiar with now. This is the reality of many water utilities, our infrastructure, which includes our pipes, our treatment plants, our transmission lines, our distribution system. They date back decades, and of course, they are aged. Repairing them, upgrading them, and replacing them is costly, and it's disruptive, and it puts a dent in our profitability, and of course, gives us a very bad image out there. Our raw water pipeline in particular is of particular interest to St. Lucia at this time. We have 5 kilometers of that pipeline, which was already compromised at the time of inception. We need to make that very clear, because at the time of inception, which is some 48 years ago, the pipeline was they used a mild steel pipeline, which was not ideal for water conveyance in that region at the time. So I really wish you would have been able to see that little photo that I have here. So you see it sprouting up in the air. So that really shows exactly what we have to deal with on a daily basis. Another one of our constraints, of course, in many regions, customers are struggling to pay their water bills due to their financial difficulties. So we have quite a few persons unable to pay us. So of course, we have a lot of arrears, we have a lot of debt. And of course, water being life, it's very difficult for us sometimes to go to the 82 or the 92-year-old lady who's living all the way probably somewhere in Millet, who really cannot afford to pay her bill. And to cut her off from the supply, of course, would sometimes be heartless. So we have financial difficulties where we have limited financial resources to improve on our infrastructure, but yet still we have those challenges. We manage a tight ship when it relates to our tariff. So our last tariff increase was, of course, in 2013, which Dr. Fletcher spoke of earlier. And that tariff increase was obviously at the time probably not sufficient. 10 years later, the tariff is not, it's not something that we could just go ahead and have discussions on and get that tariff improved or increased. We have to go through the NERC, the regulator, and we are currently in the process of doing that. So we are currently in the process of preparing what needs to be prepared for submission to the NERC. When it gets to the NERC, we may have a number of challenges. Population growth is another one of our major challenges. With the ever-growing population, the water demand has increased in households, in industries, in the commercial sector. It has also even increased in our tourism sector, because right here in St. Lucia, we find that we have had a surge in Airbnbs, a surge in our hotels, a surge in a number of even economically commercial industries. We have a lot more water bottling companies. We have a lot more commercial entities, and this has put a great strain on us. So the demand, of course, we are unable to supply. We ensure that we try our very best to share the scarce resource that we have. And in recent times, we even had to shut down one of our major income earners, which was the cruise line industry. We had to stop supplying them with water so that we could get enough water to supply our own citizens. Of course, we took a very big dent on our financial situation, but it is one of the things that decisions that utilities have to make. Water quality and safety. We have a great challenge in ensuring the delivery of safe water in certain areas because, of course, sometimes we have spills, we have pollution, but WASCO has always been a utility which we have always ensured that the safety of water is of paramount importance. And of course, all utility providers have to maintain quality standards to protect public health. So we continue to do that. Climate change, another one of the impacts of I wish you would have been able to see our dry season photos. We have a few photos of the catchments. So with climate change, of course, we have dry spells. So we have low water levels in a lot of our catchments through no fault of ours. And of course, during floods and hurricanes, we have high turbidity. And with high turbidity, we have a surge in the chemical that we need to use to treat the water. And this, of course, increases our costs. So in the dry season, we have a challenge. In the rainy season and the hurricane season, we have an equally important challenge to deal with. Through climate change and the impacts of climate change, we have quite a few areas. Dr. Fletcher spoke of Marquis. There's Marquis and Talvan in that region, which is in the Hill 20 region. And in those areas, water scarcity is becoming a great challenge. We have higher temperatures and they're reducing rainfall. And this, of course, is leading to water scarcity and an inconsistent supply of our groundwater. It's no longer a distant concern of ours. Water scarcity is a pressing reality for many of the regions, both in the north of the island and also in the south. All utilities grapple with delicate balancing of managing our resources efficiently while encouraging water conservation. We need to identify leaks, monitor usage, promote responsible consumption, and all of this is something that each and every one of us here and all of the utility partners can attest to. Our climate impacts intensify all throughout the country, increasing our water shortages. The John Compton Dam, of course, is of utmost importance to us because it feeds the entire north of the island, which would be anywhere from Millet all the way through to Cap Estate, which of course is one of our highly populated areas. The storage capacity in 2010 during Hurricane Thomas was reduced to approximately 50%. The estimated capacity, which is 3 million cubic meters, which would have been what we would have had, has decreased significantly. We experiencing a lot of sediment on a daily basis because even after Hurricane Thomas, every significant rain event puts more and more silt and sediment into our biggest storage facility, which is the JCD. We had a last I think we completed sometime in 2021, where we attempted to expose the lower port to provide access to a body of water. It was not totally successful, although we were able to expose that port, but still we have a lot more work, and the dredging works have to be maintenance works at this point. It has to be continuous. Another one of our challenges is adhering to strict regulations and standards, which is set by the regulatory bodies, government and government agencies. Dr. Fletcher spoke earlier of the NERC, which is the regulator which regulates water, and he said water and electricity. Mind you, at this time, I think they're only regulating water. Yeah, but the intention, I guess, was there, and at some point, I guess we will get there. Compliance, of course, involves regular monitoring, reporting, and costly upgrades to meet evolving regulatory requirements. Another great challenge for WASCO is customer engagement. We're trying our very best to educate persons on water conservation, leak detection, leak repairing, to understand the value of this essential service. Many people, of course, don't understand what the water is worth. The rates need to cover the cost of producing the water. Simple. Are they covering it right now? I'll leave that up to you to decide. Many of you probably just paid $24.42 for your water, which is $12.21 for 1,000 gallons of water. But yet still you'll buy this small bottle in the supermarket for $2.50. So water utility providers, we have to communicate effectively with our customers. It's a challenge because a lot of the times we have very high costs associated with providing media coverage, providing information. So of course we've moved to using, measures like Facebook and Instagram, which are measures which are a lot less costly, but they do not, of course, reach the entire population, because we have some persons who in the more rural areas are not as privileged as us, I should say, to have that facility. We have to communicate effectively, and we want the public to understand the value of our water systems and our resources. Capacity building, which was touched upon again in Dr. Fletcher's presentation. Knowledge transfer, ensuring that the transfer of knowledge from experienced employees to new employees, that is critical. It's very essential for the continuity of our operation. Okay, I think it's back. Technical expertise to provide continuous training programs and technical education, training and development, and providing ongoing professional opportunities for our staff. We actually just going to be starting a capacity building project, which is like a readiness project in preparation for another big project which we have coming on stream. So that is in the making, and we are hoping to commence in April. So that's next month. So that would be good. Non-revenue water. So non-revenue water, of course, is water that is lost before it reaches the customer. It's not being billed. However, we have the big problem because we have to treat, we have to transmit, we have to ensure the distribution lines are in order, but yet still we have 56% water, non-revenue water, based on our 2018 water audit. Utilities generally in the region have both real and apparent losses. And of course, the real losses far outweigh, in most instances, the apparent losses. We have a lot of illegal connections. We have illegal connections where people actually go and withdraw water from our systems, and we don't have any control over this. So we need to ask ourselves, how can we as a utility affect the general concept, or how people really view us as it relates to theft of water? We had a recent incident in the Hill 20 region, in the Babono region. It was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, where somebody actually went and vandalized 19 of our meters. So they actually went and they actually cut those meters off. And we're here today with the theme World Water Day, Water for Peace. But just recently, we had that kind of situation. Yes, it was in Gara. Thank you for that. What recommendations do we have? So we have a few I'll share with you. So we're hoping to promote water conservation practices, improve our technology. We're hoping to have more innovative technology measures. So improve on our leak detection, improve on our data management, have more smart and ultrasonic meters, more remote monitoring systems. We have a big project ongoing now with our asset mapping within the organization, where we're using a lot of our GIS systems now to ensure that our systems are mapped, so we don't really have to rely on some of our staff who are no longer with us. Yeah. So that's one of the things that we're looking to do. We're looking to diversify our water sources. We're exploring with, I see Jason right here with us this morning. We need to explore alternative sources of water, alternative sources of rainwater harvesting as well with some of our consumers, especially in the rainy season when the supply is that great. Financial planning, Dr. Fletcher spoke about that as well. We need to develop long-term financial plans that balance our operational needs, our infrastructural investments, revenue requirements. We are looking to vigorously explore financial options like loans, grants, public-private partnerships, anything around that region. And of course, we have to invest in our infrastructure. It's the only way. We need to prioritize our investments, upgrading and maintaining our aged infrastructure to prevent leaks, improve water quality and service delivery. So that in a nutshell is some of our challenges and some of what we're hoping to do. Of course, we know water is one of our most precious resources. We have many challenges ahead of us, and to avoid these problems, we have to ensure that we have clear long-term strategies. This is what we're working on. We're working on a strategic plan for the 2024 to 2029. And as we know, the key to business development in an age where the environment is so volatile, we all need to come together to ensure that all the stakeholders are on board with us. So thank you very much for that. Happy World Water Day, Water for Peace.
Thank you so much, Mrs. George Leslie, for that really insightful contribution presentation. Certainly, I think you've mobilized some more advocates for WASCO, now that we truly understand in the belly of the beast exactly what's happening. Certainly, our policymakers, our decision makers in the room, would be even more empowered to be able to design, policies and solutions and investments for the situation. Now, I know we're running a bit behind schedule, and I know we've encroached on your very, very busy time, but we do have one final. Yes, a perspective from the private sector. We have with us Mr. Carl Hunter, who is, well, I would say, first of all, with Jade Mountain and Chasney, he has had over 26 years experience in the industry in terms of development and maintenance. He published a handbook for the tourism industry, and now he's in this capacity representing the St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Association. And really to give us a perspective on maximizing the guest experience while minimizing the use of water. Almost sounds like a square circle, Mr. Hunter. How exactly do you do this? Welcome and share this with us. Yeah.
Hi, good morning again to all. I'm going to adopt the existing protocol, and thanks for everybody being here. I'm super low tech, so I'm not going to have technological challenges this morning. I hope this microphone makes it through the next few minutes, and we'll be good. I realize we're a little short on time, so I'm just going to really hit my high points in this. So tourism is a highly consumptive business as it relates to water consumption. But there are huge opportunities as well. Clearly, the guest expectation is to have a swimming pool, to be able to use water in abundance in their rooms, should they choose to. And the industry itself consumes a lot of water. Typically, 50% of the water used in any facility is actually guest use water. So the operational use of water for laundry, for cooking, for cleaning, is all really the other 50%. There's quite a big balance there. But as we go forward, as we look to expand tourism in St. Lucia, there are opportunities. Certainly if, I would say it would not be inappropriate for DCA to be reviewing its requirements for granting planning permission with a strong emphasis on an EIA focus that considers the hotel's water use and how it is going to manage its water use to create that buffer between the water that we need and the impact on the communities that we serve. So some of the ways to do that, if we are starting from scratch and this is a new building, we have to design smart. We need to really install ample water storage. And by that, I would say a minimum of 2 months. You should calculate your projected usage and put in 2 months worth of water storage. When we get into situations like we've recently had, which is a distribution issue, but we also may be faced with drought concerns, which would constrain the amount of water available for distribution. Facilities that have that buffer, that have that significant storage, they can run from their storage, reduce the load and the demand on Wasco's network, and essentially assist in that situation, as opposed to being the ones knocking on the door and begging and saying, you know, we need water, because everybody needs water. So we need to build in water storage. How do we fill that water storage? Again, we have opportunities, not if we're building it from scratch, not to depend on Wasco as heavily as we tend to, and harvest from our roofs, harvest from our landscaping, harvest from our storm drainage, and have all of this water go through silt traps so that the outflow from the silt traps can be treated and purified and made back into potable water before it's distributed. Another way to do that is, to Jimmy's point and to your point about producing all of this water, heavy expenditure, chemicals, power, energy, and then what do? We flush it down the toilet. So if we are innovative within the design stage and we incorporate a dual plumbing system, we can use a lot of the water that is considered wastewater for flushing our toilets. That's not unpalatable. That's not something that guests would push back on. And again, you have to message it. I think we often look at St. Lucia and we compare ourselves to every other island and we say our demographic or our hook, if you like, is sun, sea, and sand. But I think St. Lucia can have a greater reach within the marketplace. Not only do we have an astonishingly beautiful nation and perhaps the most hospitality-focused population within the Caribbean, but we also should be leveraging our eco-branding and the whole eco-nature of coming as a guest to stay in St. Lucia. And when you do that, you can set up your guest expectations to partner with you in the conservation of water. So if you made the choice just to have a shower in a guest room as opposed to giving them a shower and a tub, the guest doesn't have an offset on their expectations because they have bought into the idea that they're coming to a destination. And we should brand the nation in a more eco way so that we can engender business with these guests and have a much more compatible and also more highly energized guests as it relates to their participation in ecotourism and working with us in that way. Also, the consideration for treatment of water. Yes, we can use seawater. Yes, you can pay extraordinary high energy costs for desalination. But if you're harvesting from terrestrial water sources, from your rooftops, from rainwater, the cost of treating that water to make it into potable water is considerably lower than the very high energy costs of converting seawater through desal units, which are extremely high energy. Many environmental thinkers would call desalination, especially within our energy environment with minimal renewable energy in the grid, as really converting oil into water. And we have to do better. Within existing facilities, we can really also look at how we manage the water. Best practice is to read your water meter every day at exactly the same time every day. If you do that, then you immediately see a spike. You immediately see that you have a problem. If it's not related to a higher occupancy or a known issue, then you have a leak. So these are triggers for you to go and investigate without just waiting for your bill to come at the end of the month, seeing it's an extraordinary high bill, and then retroactively reacting to a situation that could have been brought under control very quickly. We need to, also if you have a green area in your landscape during the dry season, you've got a water leak. So visual clues can help you as well. Let's look at these things. Water-saving laundry equipment. A front-loading laundry machine uses 70% less water than a top-loading water machine. So we need to really consider how we are equipping our facilities also to utilize less water in processes that are highly water consumptive. Flow restrictors. Why would we restrict flow? And it's a psychological thing. You can give the perception of a very lush, high water flowing shower, but only be delivering 2.5 gallons per minute for that guest experience of a great shower. What we tend to do is we fall apart on our maintenance. Sediment will get in the system, the restrictor will get slightly clogged, and your maintenance team will run around and they want to please the guest. The guest is staying low water. They won't tend to change an aerator. Maybe they don't even have the aerators on the shelf to stock, but they'll start disabling it or removing it altogether, which again allows the control of water to be abandoned within the facility. There are lots of ways, if you really study water, that you can put it under control. It starts with data. You have to know your metrics, and you have to have a very comprehensive water audit so you can understand how much water is operational use, how much water is guest use, and what the variations you expect on both back of house and front of house water use based on occupancy. If you can track that and get that studied, then any little variances are triggers for you to go and investigate and get things back under control. Taking off my SLHJ hat and putting on my Jade Mountain and Anne Chastanet hat. I'm not sure if we're the only resort on island that produces 100% of water needs from water harvesting, but for Jade Mountain, we harvest. And Jade is built with a swimming pool in every room, so we need water. We would be, in fact, when Jade was being considered for DCA approval for the development, DCA gave their approval, and then subsequently all of the utilities and health departments and fire need to come behind and give their approval. Wasco was unable to give their approval because to facilitate water supply at that time for Anne Chastanet, they would have to isolate certain communities in the basin of St. Lucia, like Fontbenière, in order to pump and get the water pressure up over the hill to our facility. So if we had to add Jade Mountain's load on top of that, it wouldn't have been fair. We are very conscious of our community stewardship. It's just a non-starter. So we were very lucky within the Ansmamim Valley that's actually got a historical legacy of since 1712 is when we've tracked the history back for the occupation of Ansmamim. In 1760, they converted the valley's use to sugarcane production. And so they built a sugar mill and they built an amazing water reservoir, which we have reinstated. And we use that and all the infrastructure that was from the mid-18th century that was developed by the French. And that is now what we leverage. We distribute from that reservoir over a mile to a point where we pump it up, and we chose to make our water at the hilltop, so that once we'd expended the energy to lift it to the hilltop, we have no cost and no energy needs to distribute that water. We permanently keep 250,000 gallons of potable water for distribution. Every day my focus is to top that tank back up to the top from the consumption used from the day before. We have that at enough altitude above sea level that we're now partnering with NEMO. So in the event that we do have a major national impact, a hurricane, some event that closes tourism, we say goodbye to our guests, but there's a major water need. From our facility, we can use the existing Wasco transmission that connects to Anne-Chassenay to backfeed and supply the basin only of Soufrière with clean-up water that we're partnering and that we're committed to do should such an event require it. So the way forward is possible, partnering with Wasco, looking at innovative ways to harvest water especially. I really don't recommend seawater desalination for the main two reasons that it's super energy hungry, unless it can be done with renewable energy. But also the discharge from those systems is a highly concentrated brine that has impacts on the nearshore health and would have impacts on reefs if you have reefs attached to your properties. So let's work smart. It can be done. It needs passion. It needs commitment. It may even need some tweaks to the planning approval requirements for new facilities to have some serious contemplation for water use and conservation built in from the start. And I'll finish there. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent, Mr. Hunter. Certainly some best practices for industry that can also be translated to, commercial, other commercial and domestic. Yes, and domestic practices. Certainly understand why you wrote that those best practice guidelines. Now we are over time, but do we have any burning question or reaction from the room? Yes, Ambassador. Okay. Is there a mic available?
Thank you, Ambassador. Yes, I want to report to the attendants that Mexico is working after we built the water treatment plant at Tenerife. We changed to the technical cooperation and established one program, technical cooperation program with St. Lucia and the OECS states in order to work in some specific areas in St. Lucia about the availability of water in quantity and quality in one watershed. The idea was how to train specialists from St. Lucia and other countries how to have the information about that and to transfer our expertise in these matters that are very important. We worked on in 2023, working about this with St. Lucia, with many. Other of the projects were to work with the with FAO and CARICOM and Mexico with a donation of 5 US millions, working in so many projects talking about the food security but specifically we work with in Antigua and in St. Kitts and Nevis in the nexus between energy and water, and we finished the project. Now we are working with the UWI, the university, establishing one center for geographical information. We have now finished the project and is available the information there in order to use all the satellite type information and everything with the UWI and finish the project and working at this moment. And we were working with the CELAC for the creation of one special agency for the space that is now running, and we believe that we need only 2 signs from many countries from the OECS side in order to put in place the agency and working on innovation. So I want to express we don't hear about this kind of projects that are very important because the visibility is not too much, but we are still working in that areas. The other thing is that I can put in place the support of Mexico in many initiatives about working on water, and specifically the areas that you wanted to work together with Mexico. We have a lot of experiences. We suffer, obviously, the challenges with the water in Mexico. Mr. Fletcher knows very well what is happening in Mexico. We have the water chasing down because we have no water. But you talk about that, and in Belize, obviously, they have a lot of water. We share the border with Belize, but we are working with them also in this kind of projects. The idea is Mexico is ready, and maybe we can write more about the project that we are developing in the country. But thank you, Mr. Vitalis, Ambassador Vitalis, for this invitation, and I'm ready to work with many agencies with the government about this. Now we have specialists that are working today, and some very interesting about how to preserve the historic, the heritage places that you have in Antigua and in St. Lucia, but we are working together in that areas. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, and I'm sure there will be reach outs to you. Madam President, yes.
For very informative presentations for this morning. And my thought was, can you imagine how many St. Lucians, almost all St. Lucians, could get that kind of information? How would that impact the behavior? How would that change their behavior? And I am very happy to hear, too, public education, public awareness campaign. It came from Dr. Fletcher, as well as, I think, almost all of our speakers. But I wanted to go into WASCO as anything else. I'm coming from an area, agriculture, and we also have watersheds, etc. And I recall during my time as minister, Dr. Fletcher would come to the cabinet almost on a weekly basis to tell us how much water we had in the water tanks in our constituency. So we were well informed as MPs how much water we had, and when we would get the pressure from our constituents about not getting water, I was able to say, well, what we are doing, because we don't have much water in our tanks. Thank you. Good collaboration, good sharing here. I want to encourage WASCO in that regard as it pertains to communication. Babono in particular is the method that is used to communicate to the people. Babono people will scream and shout about not having water because they figure we have watersheds, we have rivers, why don't we have water in our pipes? But we need to communicate with them in English and in Creole. We need to engage them in the traditional ways, the town hall meetings, the church meetings, coming while they're in church just before the masses ended. Speak to them that they will understand what you are going through, and they can work with you, they can appreciate what you're doing and see what behavior change they can adopt for themselves and within their households. We have farmers, we have vegetable farmers, we have chicken farmers, we have pig farmers. They have their pens and their coops right along the sides of the river. You know that. We need to educate and empower our farmers so that they do not engage in such behaviors and have these things flowing into the rivers and causing problems for people downstream. We need to see what is happening in those rural communities and to see how we can engage farmers, the interest groups, to see how they can collaborate with WASCO and not be only about their profit, but about our health, because water is life. If they put in all of this into the water, how can we be healthy at the end of the day? So I am willing and able to work with you in whatever capacity, any one of you, and I think it's brilliant what you're sharing. I did not know a lot of it, especially what's happening in Jade and what's happening in terms of, I heard about a camping site. Good information, well done for all of you presenters. Thank you.
Thank you, and an excellent way to end from the President of the Senate. However, our final based on our agenda, our final remarks actually will be by Senator Fede, just doing a closing vote of thanks and reflections on behalf of the caucus. We know this is a bipartisan caucus, so as a member of the caucus, just to give us some final thoughts as we close.
Before I go into the closing remarks, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I just had a couple of questions and a few submissions as it pertains to our water use, particularly as it related to the tourism sector, which Carl spoke so eloquently about. I was here sitting, and as I listened to the general manager for WASCO, the phrase, given a basket to carry water, came to mind. And I thought that phrase would have been so apt when I thought of the leakages that she has got to deal with and all of the non-revenue water. A question that it provoked was, how much in the red are you? Because you didn't give a number, or have you been able to come into the black despite these challenges? You never really told us, but I was just very curious to know what the financial cost was, whether in the red or whether you were in the black. Well, you said that there was 55% non-revenue, 56% non-revenue water. I was wondering what does that cost? And I was wondering whether you're making a profit or not. No, we're not making a profit. Oh, okay. All right. As well, and this is for anyone, I heard the submission, which I quite agree, that the tourism industry is a very big consumptive industry of water. So I went and I sort of did some of the numbers for myself. So in the best year of tourism, you would have had 423,000 people. That would mean that on a weekly basis, you would have 8,134 individuals on the island. In comparison to a population of 185. I then wondered what percentage of the consumption does the tourism industry account for, given these numbers? I can sympathize as it relates to the cruise industry. Now, on the cruise side of it, the best year you've had less than 800,000, but I will use 800,000 for as a ballpark for us to do some calculations. If I went 365 days, given that the average cruise ship passenger is here for 8 hours, it would mean that on a daily basis, you would have about 2,191 individuals. if we then do a weekly calculation, there would be about 15,000 people. But I do understand the challenge that if you have 5 cruise ships in the harbor at any given time, then the consumption needs would be that of 10 to 15,000 people. And I am supposing that that would be where the big challenge is, rather than across the spectrum of the entire calendar year. So I guess there would be these peak periods where there's peak demand for the cruise season. So I just wanted to get some of your perspective on that, if you have any data in terms of what percentage of the tourism sector is the water. And then maybe it would be interesting to hear about manufacturing and agriculture. I would imagine former Minister of Agriculture would be quite capable of reusing a lot of the untreated water, for example, and may not necessarily have to rely on Wasco water. So I would like to hear from each of you in terms of, I've heard a lot from Carl in terms of tourism, but agriculture and some of the data, if the panelists can help.
Yeah, what I would say as the moderator, we are really over time.
Oh, sorry.
So maybe if a quick or maybe we could have a bilateral. Yeah? Yes. Okay. But certainly some interesting questions from you, Senator, and I guess the conversation continues. And certainly water is critical, but we do need to
wrap up.
Bring an end to the formalities.
Okay. All right.
And then we can, yes.
All right, so I'll do the closing?
Yes.
All right. So first of all, I want to thank the panelists for the very high quality of your respective presentations. All of you did an outstanding job. Madam GM of Wasco, Mr. Executive Director of CAWASA, Mr. Carl Hunter, and the lady from the United Nations Environmental Program. We also had a very, very good keynote address from Dr. Jimmy Fletcher. So I think that you're all deserving of a big round of applause for the quality of the presentations we've seen here today. I want to thank the OECS and Chamberlain and your team for making today possible. I also would like to thank Eustace and the ICCF for pulling this together in the manner that they have, and to establish a bipartisan approach to the development of the ICCF and the caucus here in St. Lucia. Very important for, both political parties to chime in on these things. When I listen to the cries of Wasco, for example, the challenges that we have faced with Wasco, they're decade-old problems. So it means that they have spanned different political parties being at the helm of the governance of the country. So it is even so more important that the caucus is given that bipartisan thrust. I want to thank everyone who has come out today from their busy schedules. I want to thank the government of Mexico for their contribution to St. Lucia and towards our development in so many ways, especially in the area of water development. Thank you so very, very much, Mr. Ambassador, who has become a very, very close and dependable friend of St. Lucia. If I have thanks to the Ministry of Education, their communications department is also here doing a tremendous work. I'm not sure if this is going live, but yes, we're going live via GIS, yeah, and Facebook and maybe some social media platforms. So thanks to our sound engineer, our technical team for making this very important discussion beamed live to the public. Thank you very, very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Senator Fede. And so this brings to an end our breakfast conversation on World Water Day, Water for Peace and Prosperity. Thanks again to all of our contributors, the panelists, and our guests in the room and online, and hoping we have helped to lift your consciousness of water and the importance of water conservation, and that we would appreciate it even more every day. Thank you, and do have a wonderful day.